Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्री वसादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. Somebody has joined by the name Dhaval. I don't know you. Can you please identify yourself? Hare Krishna, Dhaval, we cannot hear
Oh, yeah.
you.
Hi, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, this is Drashti.
Oh,
Actually, I'm
okay.
talking from my husband's account.
All right, that's okay. Change your name on the Zoom and that's okay. Welcome.
Right now, do you want me to change it?
Yeah, you can change on the Zoom by clicking the three dots. You can change your name.
Mhm.
I will change it for you. That's okay.
Okay, yeah.
So we welcome Drashti. She is also in the process of listening to class recordings like the other devotees who have joined partway through. So welcome, Drashti. Feel free to ask any and all questions, even though you are joining partway through. Feel free to ask all questions that you may have. So today, what we're gonna cover is we'll finish off chapter 13, last few verses, and then we will start chapter 14. Both these chapters 13 and 14 are very, very philosophical chapters, and some verses are very difficult to comprehend. So we'll try to explain what previous acharyas have explained. And the best way is to ask a lot of questions to understand what these chapters are talking about. So let's first finish off chapter number 13 from verse number 27 to 35. So this is section 6 of chapter 13, verses 27 to 35. Title is Jnana Chakshu. So Krishna has already answered Arjuna's 6 questions up to verse number 26. The 6 questions are Prakriti Purusha, Kshetra Kshetragya, Jnana, and Geyam. Krishna has already answered all these. This last verses in chapter 13 from 27 to 35, they are a bonus section that Krishna explains how do you integrate a worldview with the philosophical discussion that has happened in chapter 13. So therefore it is Jnana Chakshu. That how do you see with the eyes of knowledge, with the eyes of scriptures, so that it becomes spiritual. So Arjuna did not ask this question about Jnana Chakshu. Krishna is giving these verses as a bonus to further integrate the view of the concepts that Krishna has talked about so far. Now, each of these verses have a theme. I will give you the theme first. And most likely, some of you are going to say, I don't understand what these verses are talking about. So not to worry, ask questions and we'll try to clarify as much as possible. So I'll give you the themes of each of these verses first. 27 is everything is a combination of matter and spirit. 28, 29, to attain liberation, see everything material equally. Verse 30, see that the soul is non-dual. 31, see that all material variety originates in spiritual similarity. 32, see that soul always remains transcendental and does not get entangled and does not act. Verse 33 explains how the soul does not get entangled. Verse 34 explains how the soul does not act. And 35 explains gaining this Jnana Chakshu will grant liberation. So we'll start reading and discussing one verse at a time. Sumnima will start verse number 27 translation, and the theme is everything is a combination of matter and spirit.
Hare Krishna, verse 27. O chief of Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and non moving, is only a combination of field of activities and the knower of the field. Hare Krishna.
So whatever I see in the world, example, I see a beautiful painting. It is a combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya. So there is color, there is paint, there is canvas. All this is Kshetra, means these are material elements. And then there is a painter who is the Kshetragya. So the combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya has produced the painting. And you can apply this for anything and everything in the material world. Similarly, say a big building is also a combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Kshetra is all the materials, the ingredients, the raw materials. And Kshetragya is the person who is, say, making the drawing and doing the actual construction. So this is a philosophical vision. In 13.27, Krishna first states that see all of existence as made up of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Therefore, he says a combination of matter and spirit. So once I understand this, what is the result? The result is that this brings equal vision. And this equal vision is described in this 13.27 verse. And in the next verse, 13.28, the result of having that equal vision is described. So 28, 29, the theme is to attain liberation, see everything material equally. Subhash Prabhu, 28 translation.
Hare Krishna. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the
Destructible body.
within the destructible body is ever destroyed actually sees.
Oh.
Hare
So
Krishna.
one who sees that the super soul and the soul are indestructible and they are situated in this destructible body, such a person is a true seer. Well, normally I have material vision. I see bodies and I think that person is the body. Well, we have discussed from start of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's first instruction. I am not this body, I am a soul. So that's what Krishna is explaining here also. That one who sees that the body is just a shell. And inside the body there is soul and super soul. And 13.29 describes the benefit of having equal vision. Shruti 29.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. 29. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in the every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. Hare Krishna.
So generally, it is our material vision that causes problems. It is the material vision that makes us hold grudges against others. When there is no equal vision, example that this person is wealthy, I want to get that much money, or this person is poor, that person is a useless person, therefore I will neglect and disrespect that person. So all these are examples of material vision, because the person is not at 13.28, that he is not seeing the super soul and the soul in the body. He is just seeing the body. So 13.28, the focus was to see equally. And then 13.29 describes the focus is on our vision and the effect of that vision. Shreyanshi?
Prabhuji, if for example, somebody is talking at your back, or there is some situation which is not good, how do we see the good in that situation?
Yeah, there's a whole practical discussion coming up in chapter 14. I will briefly answer, and there's a detailed discussion from today and the next two classes about chapter 14. So what you have to see is that these people talking behind the back or whatever else they are doing to hurt you or whosoever, they are acting under Mahamaya. they are puppets in the hands of modes of material nature. And we use this as an example for ourselves to solidify how the modes are acting. So we don't chastise them, we don't look down upon them. No, they are just acting under the modes of material nature. They have no clue. And if I also act like how they are acting, so if say somebody is angry, I also get angry. Or if somebody is a backstabber, I also become backstabber. Well, then what's the difference between them and us? They have not studied the scriptures, so they don't even know. Well, we all have studied the scriptures. So at least we are supposed to act properly. And we are supposed to act under Yog Maya. Yog Maya is spiritual energy where we see everyone with equal vision. Exactly what Krishna has described here in 13.28, as well as what Krishna has described in 5.18 as Samadarshina. That he sees everyone with equal vision, whether one is a Brahmana, whether one is a dog, or one is a bird, or one is a dog eater, does not matter. He sees everyone with equal vision. And I have shared the karma slide earlier, not the karma, but the 5.18 Samadarshina slide I have shared earlier, that how the sage is looking at everyone with equal vision. He does not distinguish the body. He just looks at everyone with equal vision. So I will bring up that same view on the screen in terms of what I was talking about. Shreyanshi and everybody, does that answer the question?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. So I will keep pausing and asking you whether you have questions after a couple of verses, and I'm pretty sure many of you will probably have no questions. So any questions, comments so far on these verses? So verse number 30 is, see that the spirit or the soul is non-doer. Shreyanshi, 30 translation.
One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
So this is how we should see. And it is actually material nature that is the doer of things. And the soul is the non-doer. So here's a question for all of you. When you read verse number 13.30, what verse or what discussion comes to mind? Everybody? Somebody?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead, Abhishek.
The one verse, I think, from chapter 3, which says that the material nature is the doer and it is ignorant soul which thinks that they do.
Yeah, very good. So it's 3.27. So 3.27 says that Karta aham iti manyate. One who thinks I am the doer of activities, he is removed Atma. He is ignorant. And 13.30 is exact opposite of 3.27. So 3.27 says that everything is done by Prakriti, but because of Ahankar, the deluded soul thinks I am the doer. So in 3.27 is the deluded soul. He thinks I am the doer of activities in the material world. And 13.30 is the exact opposite, the enlightened person. That one who is able to see things properly. So let's read both these 3.27 and 13.30 together. Abhishek Prabhu. So first 3.27 and then 13.30 translations. You can recite also 3.27. It's a key memorization verse.
Hare Krishna, everyone. 3.27 Prakriti Kriyamani Gune Karmani Sarvasa Ahankara Vimuratma Kartahamiti Manyate. Translation: the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Right. So 3.27 is the deluded soul. He thinks he is the doer of activities which are actually carried out by the three modes. And 13.30 is exact opposite to 327 and the enlightened soul. Abhishek Prabhu, 13.30.
13.30 One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
Everybody on the same page? All right. 31 title is See That All Material Variety Originates in Spiritual Similarity. Ritu, 31 translation.
Hare Krishna, text 31. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Hare Krishna.
So see beyond the dualities to the higher reality, because material vision is not actual vision. And therefore Krishna said that don't see the different bodies, the different 8.4 million bodies. No, see the spiritual soul, or at least theoretically accept, and then you will come to the point of seeing the soul at some point of time. Raksha 32 translation and 32, the theme is see that the soul always remains transcendental and soul does not get entangled and soul does not act. So 13.32 Krishna describes how should one see the spiritual reality. Raksha.
Yes, Prabhuji. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Hare Krishna.
So one who has such a spiritual vision, which Krishna described in these verses, such a person is not bound and does not get entangled. So I described a few minutes ago that it is the material vision that I think somebody is wealthy or somebody is poor and I give them different treatments is why we get entangled. And how the soul does not get bound and does not get entangled is described in 33 and 34. So 33 says, how the soul does not get entangled. Follow me, 33.
Yes, Prabhuji. Text 33. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Hare Krishna.
So how the soul is not entangled is because the person is not doing action with any fruitive or selfish intention. And the example is given that the sky is existing everywhere. The wind filled with dirt is flying through the sky, but the sky does not get contaminated. And in Bhagavatam, another example is given that the clouds are resting on the sky. And when it rains, the sky does not get wet. Similarly, the soul can be situated in any of the 8.4 million different bodies. But the soul will not become entangled as long as the action is without any fruitive intention. So the point of this discussion is that soul may be situated in any of the bodies, either human body, animal body, bird body, fish body, does not matter. The soul continues to remain transcendental. Just as the sky is not affected by dirt in the wind or rain from the clouds, similarly, the soul is not affected. And verse number 34 describes how the soul does not act. Shreyanshi has a question.
Prabhuji, one question is that from a sadhu point of view, he sees everybody equal irrespective of the body forms. My question is that in the material world, we are conditioned in such a way that if we are looking to, for example, make a friend, or like we're looking to connect with somebody for some purpose, for example, professional, we are like conditioned to see like how somebody talks, what is he wearing, what he or she is doing. So you said like if you have that vision, you won't get entangled. But if you're looking to make a relationship with work point of view or whatever, so how do we make sure that we are detached, but also at the same time we are talking to the right person? Because this is what we are conditioned.
Very good. So those devotees in the Bhagavatam batch, they will be able to answer this. And Shreyanshi, when you listen to the Bhagavatam classes, you will also hear this discussion that as long as you are a grahastha, you have to see the difference between male and female. And one who is in the sannyas ashram, he does not see the male and female differences. He only sees everyone at the soul. So there's a detailed discussion in Srimad Bhagavatam on this point. I only briefly answered. So Shreyanshi, you are correct. You have to see the male and female differences to have a relationship, because we all are grahasthas. It's just described in chapter 3 Bhagavad Gita around verse number 25, the difference between karma kandya and karma yogi. That karma yogi is detached and intelligent, while those karma kandya or materialistic people, they are less intelligent and they are attached at the bodily level. So we have to come, this is what Krishna is explaining, that we have to come out of bodily concept of life. We can still have relations. And it's described in Srimad Bhagavatam also that In the spiritual world also there are relations like they have husband, wife, mother, father, siblings, but they are not attached at bodily level, even though they are significantly more times more beautiful and good looking than what people are here on earth, because they all have higher taste of spirituality. Therefore, they continue to glorify Krishna all the time. Shreyanshi and everybody.
Just one more follow-up question last. So, because if I am coming from material senses, I'm not a sadhu yet. So, I'm speaking equally to somebody who is getting alms, like they don't have anything. They're basically asking money from me, and there will be somebody who is a rich person, and I look at both from the same senses, because I know at spiritual level it's the same. It's the person in the end who matters. But being in the material world, I have been conditioned to talk to only those people who are more privileged than me. So for
So
me,
you have to change that now. Therefore, Krishna is giving these verses to us that yes, this is our default ringtone. The example I have given, just as you buy a new cell phone, comes with a default ringtone. Similarly, our body has a default setting. So what Shreyanshi described is the default setting, which is at the material level. So from scriptures, we have to transform that. Now I start seeing spirituality around. I'll give you a 3-step process of how to see spiritual. Step 1 is our current condition, what Shreyanshi perfectly described, and Shreyanshi is not alone. I'm also at the same level that I see material in material, means I see bodies. Then I have to move to seeing spiritual within material, means I have to start recognizing that body is just a shell and there is a spirit soul within the body. So I'm starting to come to seeing spiritual within material, and then I will be able to see spiritual in spiritual. Shreyanshi, everybody.
okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, so Shruti has a question in the chat saying, what does seeing in duality mean? Seeing soul and body as two different entities? So duality means black and white, hot and cold, day and night, happiness, distress. These are dualities. So soul and body, that's not duality. Seeing the soul means you have come to Samadarshina level where you are able to see the soul. And Samadarshina will also, there will be levels that we have it's described in Shishopanishad, that a Madhyamadhikari, he still sees the soul and body because it's better for preaching to see the body also. And Uttamadhikari was also Samadarshina. Madhyamadhikari is also Samadarshina. And Uttamadhikari generally only sees the soul. He does not see the body. Shruti?
Okay, thanks, Prabhuji.
So there is a question posted in the chat that we are in this material life. How can we ignore material nature and material life fully? So nowhere in scriptures it says to ignore material life. Nowhere. Show me anywhere. Have we ever discussed this? Never. What Krishna describes is Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means that everything in the material world belongs to Krishna. Krishna has described this in 5.29, that Sarva Loke Maheshwaram, that he is the Maheshwar of all lokas. And our bodies, our senses also belong to Krishna, Rishikesh. And Krishna says, and Prabhupada has also described this in many lectures, that everything belongs to Krishna and everything must be used in service of the Krishna. That is Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means that is proper renunciation. And false renunciation means, or Falgu Vairagya means that I will not take money because I think I will get entangled when I could take the money and use it in Krishna's service. I am ignoring or rejecting something material which can actually be used in Krishna's service. I am rejecting in the name of renunciation that I don't want to get entangled. That is false renunciation. Yukta Vairagya, proper renunciation is that whatever you can use it in Krishna's service, take it and use it in Krishna's service. That is appropriate way to live material life. Does that answer the inquiry? All right, Parth Pratyush Prabhus.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pratyush here. My question was, we often say that our present misfortunes is due to past karma. But if soul is the non-doer of activities, then does that mean that it does not collect karmic debt?
So karma only applies to the body. When you purify yourself, both good and bad, past and present and future karma, Krishna wipes it off. So understand that existence started by soul's desire. We discussed at great length in 13.22, Bhumte, that soul wanted to enjoy in the material world. Therefore, we are here, and the body is a shell given to soul to fulfill his enjoying mentality. Why body is given? That just as humans go to space as astronauts, they cannot function in space because the body is not made to function in space. Therefore, they put on space suits. Similarly, soul cannot function in material world because soul and material world are opposite, like water and oil. They cannot mix. And for the soul to function in the material world, they need space suits like what astronauts need. And that space suit is our body and mind, the physical body and the subtle body. So for whatever good and bad happens through the body, the soul gets the happiness and distress, which we have discussed at great length in chapter 13, verse number 6 and 7. Yush Prabhu.
Prabhuji, just to add on to the question, if we take an example of a newborn baby born in a war-torn area or born in a palace, it's a new body in both cases. Then what's the reason why there's a difference in circumstances?
Yeah. The word that you used about circumstances and the example that you gave is word for word there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says with this exact same example that in a hospital, side by side, two children are born. One is born in a rich family and another is born in a very poor family. And we cannot trace back our karma, what led to these differences. It's not possible. We have discussed this same point in 4.16, 17, 18, the karma verses, that in the entire existence, it is only Krishna who knows how karma works. Therefore, we don't have to worry about how karma works. And plus, our brains are not having the capacity to understand karma. Therefore, Krishna says, don't worry about karma, just worry about three things. What is karma? What is vikarma? And what is akarma? Pratyush Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Pratyush Prabhu, had you continued Bhagavatam class, you would have not had this question. You would have heard the analogy there.
Yes, sorry, Prabhuji.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody on the same page? All right. Malti.
No, Prabhuji, all good.
Part Prabhu will read 34 translation. So 34 says, how the soul does not act.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Verse 34. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Hare Krishna.
So an example is given that sun is far away from earth. Still, sun illuminates as well as sun activates everything on earth. As soon as the sun rises, the flower starts blossoming, the birds start chirping, the whole vegetation comes alive. How this happens? This happens because there is connection. At the same time, is the sun responsible if at some place there is positive growth like fruits and flowers, and some other place there is negative growth like weeds? Is sun responsible? No, sun is not responsible. Sun is neutral. It is because certain seeds were sown, because of which certain places there is positive growth like fruits and flowers, and other places there is negative growth like weeds. So the soul illuminates all the 8.4 million life forms with consciousness. And it is that consciousness that causes the activity in the body, just as the sun illuminates the universe with light. So whether the soul is in a dinosaur body or an elephant body or a human body or a tiny insect body, it is the soul, the identical soul, that illuminates all these bodily forms through consciousness. And the last verse, verse number 35, describes that gaining this Jnana cakshu will grant liberation. Pratyush Prabhu, 35.
35. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal.
Right? Those who see with eyes of knowledge. Therefore, this last section title is Jnana Chakshu, eyes of knowledge. So some of you were asking this exact practical questions, that I have the default setting in my body as the material vision. And from these verses in chapter 13, first I understand Kshetra and Kshetragya, that body is just a shell. 13.25 Krishna described, in the body there is soul and super soul. And then in these verses from 27 to 35, we discuss the step-by-step process, that once you have this vision, or at least start seeing from this point on, that will grant you liberation and not get you entangled in material world. So Krishna says, understand the difference between Kshetra and Kshetragya. Once you understand that there is soul beyond matter, such a person will attain supreme destination of and liberation. Pratyush Prabhu, 35 purport, faster pace.
The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the supersoul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on the supreme destination. A faithful person should, at first, have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master One can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from the materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the supersoul. The soul and the supersoul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master.
That's a
Thus end
spectacular. Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of nature, danger, and consciousness. Hare Krishna.
This is a very spectacular purport. Prabhupada summarized many points of chapter 13 in few lines. He starts by the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul, Kshetra, Kshetragya, and the super soul. That this is Gayam. And then he talked about verses 8 to 12. This is Jnana. And Prabhupada talked about Kshetra and Kshetragya and that the soul and super soul. Prabhupada talks about almost the entire chapter 13. Also, he talks about the 24 elements and the psychological effects that we go through. Almost the entire chapter 13 in one simple purport. Questions, comments, realizations? Shreyanshi.
Prabhuji, I don't know if it's connected with this chapter or not, but what I feel is that lot of times, lot of spaces are protected energetically and the vibration is not matching. For example, I want to get into a particular class and to get into that, I feel like suddenly my body is not responding. Like either like my hand start paining or something, like I can feel like I'm not able to reach to that frequency. So how do you where
Are you,
like can you tell me more about it?
are you talking material world classes or spiritual world classes?
Uh, I mean, materially, my body is not responding. Soul wise, I want to get into a certain class or I want to get into a certain space. But I know like the energy is so high that I'm not able to cope up. Like I'm not like
Yeah,
either I fall sick, either my body is not responding. So I know that the energy is very high.
yeah. So you have to find a balance. So we have discussed balance so many times that I want to become a pure devotee today. Are Baba, I have accumulated dirt on top of my mind for at least 155 trillion years in this cycle of creation. How do you expect to remove the dirt in 1 or 2 or few days? So you have to find a balance. And I'll tell you, there are many devotees who join spirituality and they start progressing upwards in a steep line. They climb in a steep line and they fall down also in that same steep line. So spirituality, better approach is gradual. I've explained so many times that spirituality is not about quantity. Spirituality is about quality. Spirituality is about taste. It's not about quantity. I cannot go back home by chanting 32 rounds every day when we are supposed to chant 16. It's not mathematical. So basically, you don't have a balance. So find a balance. Instead of saying, I want to go to this and that class, find a balance and practice. Shreyanshi.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sumnima.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. It mentioned about spiritual master here, and I was just curious. Previously, there used to be spiritual master with certain number of disciples, and now probably the number of disciples per spiritual master is very high. So, how do they learn one on one or learn so much from spiritual master if they're not, direct disciple and working with them together?
Yeah. So spirituality or the connection with spiritual master is through instruction. So I'll give you my spiritual master's example, and the same applies to all spiritual masters. So Matan Prabhu is also my god brother. So we have a WhatsApp group where my spiritual master posts lectures and instructions every day, not one instruction, multiple instructions every day. And disciples follow. Some disciples ask direct question to Guru Maharaj that I have so and so problem. I mean, some devotees just post a message, and some other devotees sometimes have had similar question they will answer, or sometimes nobody answers and then Guru Maharaj will answer. So the connection with a spiritual master is not physical. It is Vani based, meaning instruction based. And the instruction can happen. My spiritual master travels every week. He is in a different country, different physical space. Well, I cannot be with him all the time. Some disciples are there, but not all. So it is based on Vani instructions. As long as you are following the spiritual master's instructions, you are with your spiritual master all the time, 24 hours, 365 days. Somnima?
Yes, Prabhuji. And how do we serve spiritual master if they're always traveling?
So this is a role of a mentor. So those of you who are in the remainder of the batches 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to inform all of you tomorrow that all the devotees in batch 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they are all ready for initiation. Sumnima being one of them, that you should immediately get a spiritual mentor. And the role of a spiritual mentor is to narrow down which spiritual master is appropriate. And they will tell you to listen to spiritual master lectures. And you will realize that although all spiritual masters are equal, you will connect with a particular spiritual master only. Although they are talking same points, similar points, but you will connect with one particular spiritual master, and that becomes your bona fide spiritual master. Somnima?
Okay, Prabhuji. Yes, thank you.
Of course, I'm only briefly answering. This is the role of a spiritual mentor to guide you. I'm throughout. I've given some other examples also, but Sumnima, you should get a spiritual mentor right away.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So all devotees in batch 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Some of the devotees are present here also from batch 4 and 5. All should get spiritual mentor right away. We're all ready for initiation. Questions, comments, realizations? All right, we'll start chapter 14. So you have the shell template on the screen, which everyone should have it. So we'll populate this chart from verse number 6 onwards. Until that time, take notes on a different page. The overview of chapter 14 and the connection with chapter 13 is that gunas, the modes, do not affect the soul. The soul remains transcendental to the three modes we discussed in the last few verses in chapter 13. Bhagavad Gita 13.22, as we have discussed, as the seed verse of material existence, that because of bhumte, the enjoying mentality, because of that bhumte, there is contact with the gunas, the modes. And because of this contact with the modes, the soul becomes bound and meets with good and evil among various species. Meaning, the association with the modes is the cause of bondage, but the soul is still transcendental. When one goes beyond the influence of the modes, that's when one becomes free from bondage. Meaning, the modes are a critical factor that bring about the bondage. But the modes of material nature are not the cause of bondage. The cause of bondage is the soul's bhunte, the desire to enjoy the material world, and the bondage is executed through the modes. So very important to understand this, that the cause of bondage is the soul's bhunte, the desire to enjoy the material world, and the bondage is executed through the modes. Now, recognizing this enables one to develop some seriousness in knowing what are these modes. We are 24 hours controlled by the modes, but we don't know the modes. Therefore, it's a very, very important chapter. So, modes are the mechanism by which the soul is bound within material existence. And how the modes entangle the transcendental soul in material world is described in this chapter 14, titled The Modes of Material Nature, the three modes of material nature. Now, this topic of the three modes of material nature is not explained anywhere in Bhagavad Gita before this chapter 14. But in the first verse, Krishna will go on to say the word bhuyaya means again, that I will explain this knowledge to you again. So how do you understand this? So we'll discuss this point at great length. So here in chapter 14, it is explained how the bondage takes place through the modes, which is described in chapter 14. And 13.22 is the seed verse for these last 6 chapters, starting from 13 onwards. So I will repeat the point that I had explained at the start of chapter 13, means the flow of chapters 13 to 18. So all of you have heard it, only Drashti has not heard this, so I will repeat this. So 13.22 is among the most important verses, and Acharyas have called 13.22 as the Bij Vakya, or the seed verse of entire material existence. So chapter 15 describes the metaphor of upside down banyan tree to describe material existence. The upside down banyan tree means that things in the material world are upside down. So any tree has to grow from a seed. That seed is 13.22, the soul's bhumte, or the desire to enjoy is the seed. And the seed as well as the tree of material existence needs water, and that water is provided by the three modes of material nature for nourishment. So chapter 15 describes the tree itself. So 13.22 has the word sangha, means association with the modes. And chapter 15 verse 3 and 4, Krishna describes asanga, means detachment, that you become detached from the tree of material existence with determination. Chapter 16 describes the upper and lower parts of the tree, meaning the two extreme, which is the divine and demoniac nature. And chapter 17 describes the in-between parts, meaning people who are not explicitly devoted to God according to scripture, nor they are presently defiant of God. They are described in chapter 17 as the in-between to the two extremes, and chapter 18 as a summary of everything. So 13.22, the bhumte, the soul's desire to enjoy, leads to all the chapters from 13 to 18. Of course, 18 has summary of everything. I will pause here. Questions, comments, realizations? Shreyanji?
Just to recap, Prabhuji, so basically the three modes are goodness, passion, and ignorance. So if we start from ignorance, it's basically like somebody who is ignorant if somebody is in pain. And passion is like basically somebody's very
Hold
passionate to
your
help
thought.
that person.
Hold your thought. So there's detailed discussion coming up, and you will understand. What you're describing is not wrong. I request you to hold your thought.
Okay.
So we discussed that the modes cause the bondage, and it is very, very important to understand. So we are controlled by the modes 24 hours, but we cannot see the modes. So it's very important for us to understand, how do I see the modes? Only then I can try to be in a higher mode of goodness instead of being in the lower mode of ignorance. The answer is based on the characteristics and the actions related to the various modes. You will recognize that which mode is influencing you at a particular time. So we'll first understand the philosophy. The philosophy is very boring philosophy. And you will go, huh? What do I do with this philosophy? And I also studied only the philosophy part in my Bhakti Shastri course. And then I said, what do I do with this philosophy? And then I researched a lot how to make this practical, and which I'm going to share with all of you. So we'll have a lot of practice on this chapter 14. This chapter 14 is a standalone chapter in Bhagavad Gita. We'll soon read. At the very start, Krishna says that if someone understands this chapter 14 alone, he will go back home, back to Godhead. It's a very, very important chapter and a very, very practical and a required chapter to understand ourselves on a day-to-day basis, that how and why we are acting the way we are acting. And how do I change my actions to better actions? We'll discuss all these practical points. So chapter 14 is titled Modes of Material Nature. In Sanskrit is Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Chapter 14 is divided into 3 sections, and there are subsections within these sections. Section 1 is verses 1 to 13. How the soul is conditioned by the modes. So there are 4 subsections in section 1. Verses 1 and 2 is glorification of the knowledge. Verse 3 and 4, how the soul contacts matter. Verses 5 to 9, how the modes bind the soul. And verses 10 to 13, identifying the modes dominating us by their principal characteristics. Section 2 is verses 14 to 18. The effect of conditioning by the modes. So 4 subsections under section 2. Verses 14 and 15 is long-term effect, meaning post-death destination. Verse 16 is medium-term effect. Verse 17 is immediate effect. And verse 18 is direction of post-death journey. Section 3 is verses 19 to 27. Transcending the modes. Everybody got the sections, subsections?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
can you repeat once more?
All right. So section 1 is verses 1 to 13. How soul is conditioned by the modes. 4 subsections in section 1. Verses 1 and 2, glorification of knowledge. Verses 3 and 4, how soul contacts matter. Verses 5 to 9, how the modes bind the soul. Verses 10 to 13, identifying the modes dominating us by their principal characteristics. Section 2, verses 14 to 18, the effect of conditioning by the modes. 4 subsections, verse 14 and 15, the long-term effect. post-death destination. Verse 16 is medium-term effect. Verse 17 is immediate effect. Verse 18 is direction of post-death journey. Section 3 is verses 19 to 27, transcending the modes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So now verse 1 and 2 is glorification of the knowledge. So we'll read verse number 1 and we'll understand Krishna's point about saying again, that why does he say, I'm explaining this to you again, although he has not explained the modes anywhere in in Bhagavad Gita before chapter 14. Padma Kumar Prabhu, 14.1 translation and purport.
Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. Purport: from the 7th chapter to the end of 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in details reveals the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Lord Himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to the association with the modes of nature that living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this chapter, various great sages attain perfection and transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far, far superior to all other process of knowledge thus far explained, and knowing this, many attain perfection. Thus, it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Hare Krishna.
Right? So chapter 14 is a standalone chapter. Prabhupada explains that many have attained perfection by understanding this chapter 14, and the last line says, one who understands this 14th chapter will understand and will attain perfection. Therefore, it's a very, very important chapter. So the glory of this knowledge is that understanding this knowledge, great sages have attained perfection. So Krishna says, Bhuyaya, again. Now Krishna has not talked about the modes in detail anywhere before in Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, there was one verse. So then why is Krishna saying Bhuyaya? Why is he saying, I will explain this to you again? The answer is, the analysis of the three modes culminates in devotional service. And that devotional service, Krishna has explained throughout Bhagavad Gita so far. Therefore, in the purport also, Prabhupada explains at the very start that once who understands the modes comes to the point of devotional service. So in terms of technical knowledge of the modes, described in chapter 14, that technical knowledge of the modes is not described anywhere else in Bhagavad Gita. But in terms of the conclusive action plan of devotional service, that devotional service knowledge has already been explained throughout Bhagavad Gita. And therefore Krishna is saying, I will explain this to you again. So chapter 14 ends with two verses, 14.26 and 27, to establish the glory of bhakti and the glory of Bhagavan. And this has been the whole bhakti section, as well as throughout Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Krishna is saying, Bhuyaya. Again, I will explain. He's explaining devotional service. Now, also important to understand that Krishna says, sages have attained perfection. Krishna did not say devotees. He did not use the word bhaktas. He does not say devotees have attained perfection. So, to understand this, you understand that devotees don't need this detailed analysis of the three modes. Devotees have some basic philosophical understanding, and rest of the knowledge Krishna provides from within, which we have discussed in 10.10, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. So chapter 14 is talking about the sages, how sages take up devotional service. Of course, it's a very practical chapter for us to get out of this entanglement. Chapter 14 talks about the modes, but eventual conclusion is that one should practice devotional service. The analysis in this chapter 14 is that how the bondage of modes is so complex and how difficult it is to break free from these modes. One recognizes this, that by taking shelter of Krishna, one can get free from the modes very easily. Therefore, Krishna is saying that he is repeating this, and this is the best of knowledge. By this knowledge, one can attain the supreme destination. And Krishna glorifies the knowledge further in 14.2 verse also. Drashti, are you able to read 14.2 translation?
Yeah, sure. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
So Krishna is saying that by taking shelter of this knowledge, you will attain nature just like me. Important point, very important point, that Krishna is not saying taking shelter of me. No, rather Krishna is saying taking shelter of this knowledge. What this means is that you have to take shelter of Krishna's knowledge also. Yes, you can take shelter of Krishna also, or you can take shelter of Krishna's knowledge also. Krishna's philosophy is also to be taken shelter of. Philosophy is not to be approached merely from an analysis perspective only. So Krishna has said that one cannot know Krishna just by the intellectual study of Vedas. Anybody remembers where have we studied this? What verse is this? That Krishna says that one cannot know Krishna by intellectual study of Vedas. We covered recently. Somebody? Silence, I got silence. Okay, Ptolemy says chapter 9, so it's not in chapter 9. Not in chapter 13 also.
I think it's in chapter 1 or 2.
Okay, not in 1 and 2 also. As Subhas Prabhu is correct in chapter 11. So 11.53, Krishna says that by study of Vedas, by charity, by austerity, by worship, one cannot know Krishna. So 11.53 is the answer. Subhas Prabhu is correct. So one studies this knowledge to gain relief and release from the confusion of material existence. Well, though that's a jnani path. It's a lower path. We approach this knowledge to take shelter of this knowledge. So many of you have had offline conversations with me about how to improve quality of japa. And I have described, so my Guru Maharaj also has a lot of sessions on improving japa quality, and he also had this session one time here in Toronto. So this is a misconception that many think that I have to just sit and chant all 16 rounds at one time or whatever be the number of rounds. No, that's not correct. If your mind is not listening, then what's the point? So my Guru Maharaj has taught that you can chant 1 or 2 rounds and take a break. In the break, you don't go and do other things. In the break, you read 1 or 2 Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam verses. So what are you doing? You are taking shelter of this knowledge by putting Krishna through his words into your mind so that the mind does not wander. And putting Krishna in the mind is the strongest deterrent from letting the mind wander, so that the mind stays in control. And then come back and continue your japa. So you don't have to artificially just chant like a parrot. You have to hear your japa, you have to feel the connection of the soul with the super soul. But it's a work in progress for me also. But the point here is that you can take shelter of Krishna, or you can take shelter of this knowledge, and it's identical. So with Jnana, our goal is not to conquer Krishna with Jnana. Rather, our knowledge is so that we be conquered by Krishna's love. We offer to him in various ways. One way is through intellect, because intellect is also meant to be used to surrender to Krishna. Just as we take shelter of Krishna's message also, Krishna's knowledge also. Questions, comments, realization so far? Shivji.
But the problem with acquiring from intellect is that it's very easy to slip. I feel
Yeah.
like if somebody is bound by devotion, I think that is like a
Yeah.
strong bond.
Yeah, hold your thought. Hold your thought. It's a coming up question, practical question coming up. Hold your thought. So Pratyush Prabhu also asked a question last class, and I said we'll get answered in chapter 14. And I will ask that same question, and both Pratyush Prabhu's question and Shrivanshi's point will get answered when we do this in our class. Everybody will answer in class and we will track. We'll have some fun on that. Who thought Bhagavad Gita and fun, the same sentence goes? Anybody thinks Bhagavad Gita is boring philosophy? Got silence. Everybody thinks Bhagavad Gita is boring?
No,
No, Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
No, Prabhuji.
Absolutely not, Prabhuji.
All right. Thank you. So now verse number 3 and 4 is how the soul contacts matter. Matan Prabhu, 3 and 4 translation. Although verse number 4 is a key memorization verse, but I'm not reciting today. You can recite 3 and 4 translations.
3. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is the Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living being, O son of Bharata. Verse 4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kundi, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father.
Very nice. There was an echo and sounded like Matan Prabhu was doing an Akashvani of these important verses. Thank you. So material nature is not conscious. Material nature does not become active on its own. And this is the point explained in this verse, that Krishna plays a vital role right from the beginning of creation. So creation is described at great length in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2 and Canto 3, where a step-by-step process is given of how this material world, our body, how everything got formed in a step-by-step process. And at the start, Krishna is there providing all the ingredients, and at every step, Krishna is there. So Krishna is there in a very vital role from the very beginning of creation, throughout creation. And that's the point being made, that material nature cannot do anything. Without the glance of Krishna, material nature cannot do anything. In the purport, Prabhupada gives an example that the scorpion lays eggs in the rice, and some people think that the scorpion is born out of rice. But actually, the eggs have come from elsewhere, mean the scorpion laid the eggs earlier. Similarly, the soul may appear to come from material nature, but soul do not come from material nature. Soul's seed-giving father is Krishna. The verse 14.4, Krishna clearly says, Aham bij pratapita. And therefore, Prabhupada says in many lectures, as well as he has a book titled, Life Comes from Life. So 14.4, all living beings are manifested by the grace of Supreme Lord as the seed-giving Father. Now, would you all like to recite the 14.4 key memorization verse in Sanskrit?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
All right. So I will first recite the whole Sanskrit, and then you all can unmute and recite one line after me, please. 14.4. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahadiyonir aham bij pradapita. Everybody unmute and recite one line after me, please. Sarvayonishu Kaunteya
Sarvayonishu Kaunteya
Murtaya Sambhavantiya
Murtaya Samvaya
Tasam Brahma Mahadiyonir
Tasam
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Aham Bij
Very good. Many of you are also reciting in that tune. That's very nice. I will soon have Sanskrit class with our Siksha Guru, His Grace Bhakti Yoga Prabhu. Hopefully soon. I reminded him, I have to remind him again. And we will have even more appropriate way of pronouncing the Sanskrit. I'm not that good at pronouncing, but Bhakti Yoga Prabhu will teach us. Now, 14.3 and 14.4 are saying the same thing. Just the focus of the verse is different. The focus of 14.4 is the first line, Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya, that all species of life. And the focus of 14.3 is that Lord is the factor in the whole creation. He says that I am the one who impregnates material nature. Therefore, all living beings are made possible. Of course, the same point is there in 14.4 also, that all living beings are manifested by the grace of Supreme Lord as the seed-giving Father. Malti 14.4 purport.
purport. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is original Father of all living entities. The living entities are combination of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet but on every planet, even on the highest, where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth there are living entities, even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother material nature and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. Hare Krishna.
So Krishna is the seed-giving Father, no matter what life form is, no matter which universe it is, from the infinite universes. Questions, comments, realizations so far?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, in the last sentence, it writes, the purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. These deeds are by the body or by the soul? What past deeds?
So, Prabhupada has explained the word time since time immemorial. That we don't know how this started. Yes, it started by soul's desire to enjoy. And it started by we all souls becoming envious of Krishna while we were in the while we were in the spiritual world. All this created the bad karma for us as the starting point. And in the human form of body, I have described this in the karma discussions. As we exhaust our karma, we create more karma. Therefore, karma is an endless loop. So I have shown you visual for for the karma's endless loop also. So we don't know when it started. Karma is related to body, but it all started by soul wanting to enjoy separate of Krishna and soul becoming envious of Krishna. That's what led to karma. So I have this visual on the screen for karma as an endless loop. That while we are exhausting the karma in the human form of life, we are creating more karma also, which generates all these 8.4 million life forms. And you can see human also is there in the animal form together with the animals, because in the human body, if one is not doing spirituality, then he is just an animal in a human form of body. But if you do Krishna consciousness, even if you have not completed your Krishna consciousness, then there is very high likelihood that you will get a devotee body or life of a devotee in devotee association. Does that answer the question, Pratishra?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Shreyanshi?
Prabhuji, my question is, why is material nature called as the mother? I mean, if Krishna is father, I think even Krishna is mother also.
So yes, you are correct. Krishna is father and mother. Krishna can act in various ways, just as Brahmaji was born on the lotus flower. There was no mother. He was born directly from Krishna. So Krishna can do everything. All right. So verses 5 to 9 is how the modes bind the soul. From verses 5 to 20, talk about the three modes. We'll only discuss briefly this verse number 5. I'll lay the foundation and then continue discussing in our subsequent class. Kamalpreet Prabhu, verse number 5 translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, just wait, I must open that page. Yeah. So, Hare Krishna. So, translation, text 5. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty arm Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
So Krishna is introducing the three modes in this verse number 5, that there are three modes which are born of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And these modes bind the soul, no matter how powerful the soul may be. So the question comes up. So I'm going to lay the foundation for the modes and then continue in our subsequent discussion, subsequent class, because the discussion from next class I cannot finish if I start today. So I will only lay the little bit of foundation in the last few minutes that we have today. The question is, what exactly are the modes? Are modes like physical things like table, chair, computer, phone, etc.? Or are these concepts? So modes are things, just as we have physical things like table, chair, computer, phone. Similarly, modes are also things. Just modes are not gross things. Modes are subtle things. Therefore, we cannot see. So generally, we do not think of subtle things as things. But modes are things, just they are subtle. Concept is used in the sense of fiction. Thinking about something like this or like that. Whether they exist or not, we don't know. But the existence of modes is not gross, not physical like the existence of table, chair, computer, cell phone, etc. But modes do exist in subtle form. And being subtle, we have to perceive the modes through the understanding, through the characteristics, by focusing our intellectual to go below the surface. Because modes are subtle and you cannot see them, but you can know the modes through the understanding. So we'll discuss practical examples for all of this, that how do I see the modes 24 hours? Now, what do the modes do? So the modes are subtle forces that shape the interaction between gross matter and consciousness through the root of subtle matter. I will repeat this statement in terms of what the modes do. Modes are subtle forces that shape the interaction between gross matter, meaning body, and consciousness, means soul, through the root of subtle matter. Subtle matter is mind, intelligence, and ego. Meaning, modes are subtle forces, not gross reality. And I'll explain this with a fire example. So gross matter is the fire. Say there is a fire someplace. Say in an office building, say there is a fire. And I'll show you a visual for this in a subsequent class to understand this. So say there is a fire someplace, that is gross matter. Now, because of fire, some people simply run and they cause a stampede. Why? Because the mode of passion was influencing that particular person at that particular time, at that place. So the characteristics of passion is to act without thinking. Now at the same place where the fire has happened, some people just freeze in fear. They don't even find a fire extinguisher, or they don't even call 911 or the fire department. Why? Because they are in ignorance, meaning the mode of ignorance is influencing that particular individual at that time, at that place. Even though it's the same place, one person, passion is influencing, therefore he is just running and causing a stampede. Another person is freezing, doing nothing. Ignorance is influencing. And some other person may either find a fire extinguisher, or they may even call the fire department. So mode of goodness is influencing them, because the characteristics of goodness is to think first and then act. So the above are the example of reactions in passion, ignorance, and goodness. So you can judge for yourself that how you react on a day-to-day basis. I'm only laying foundation today. Our next class is going to be super practical and super heavy. So you can judge which mode is influencing you at that particular point. And we will understand a lot more about the modes in our subsequent class. And then you will be able to judge for yourself more. Now, what makes people to take the above different actions of passion, ignorance, and goodness? The answer is, it is the modes the people are in at that particular time which makes them react differently. So Shruti is saying, isn't it fear? Yes, it is fear, but the overarching influence of why a person freezes in a fireplace is because the mode of ignorance is influencing that person at that particular point in time. So the modes, what's the definition I gave you, that the modes are the subtle forces that shape the interaction between gross matter and consciousness through the root of subtle matter. So this shapes the interaction between gross matter and consciousness. That because of the influence of the modes, somebody is just running, causing a stampede, somebody is freezing in fear, and somebody is finding a fire extinguisher. So the gross matter is fire. My response is, I run away from there. Well, the mode of passion is influencing me at that point of time. Why this happens is because of a particular mode influencing me at that point in time. Everybody with me so far? Questions, comments, realizations? Again, I'm only laying foundation. Not to worry. There is a significantly heavy discussion coming up in our subsequent class. I'm only laying very tiny foundation for now. Now, I also explained that modes comprise the way. So we have discussed multiple times that the modes do everything. So let's understand an example for this. So example, take there is a building 10-story high, and there are different staircases. So one staircase is going straight down in a straight line from the 10th floor all the way to ground floor in one straight line. Now, this will be very dangerous if someone slips. Another staircase is that you have few steps, then there is a landing, then you turn, then there is few steps, then there is a landing. And the third way is that could be a decorative round and round steps in the middle, and it just goes round and round and round and round. So one can go up or down. The staircase is the way to go up or down. Similarly, there is interaction between gross matter and consciousness, and that interaction happens through the medium of modes. So I gave you examples of 3 staircases, 3 different styles, 3 different kinds. So there are 3 predefined staircases, and whichever staircase one chooses, he proceeds along that way, meaning the modes of material nature go and execute which staircase the soul has chosen. If we choose the mode of passion route, then we probably will take that one long straight staircase going from 10th floor all the way down in one straight line, because we want to act passionately. I will pause here for questions, comments, realizations. All right. So,
we can
Abhishek Prabhu, go ahead.
change this while the action is like the mode we are in. We can change while they are acting also, right?
You can change. We will discuss this, and Abhishek Prabhu, you already heard that discussion earlier. You can change, and if you recall 2.6263 discussion and the chart that we populated, that it's easier to change when you are at the starting point versus if you are halfway through, and specifically in the mode of passion where you are running very fast, it's a little difficult to change halfway through. It is possible, just a little difficult. Abhishek,
Yes. Thank you.
Sumnima?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So, if we cannot change the mode, is it possible to act in mode of passion and still do the service activities?
So you can still do the activities, but the activity will be in the mode of passion.
Is it possible that we become passionate towards the activity, or that goes into again going into mode of goodness?
So it's not a black and white answer. And the chart that I have for chapter 14, which I have on screen, so I have described earlier that as part of Bhagavad Gita, I will give you 4 major charts. The first chart is the yoga ladder. This chapter 14 chart is the second chart. And the third and the fourth chart is an extension of this chapter 14 chart of the modes at a granular level. So to answer Sumnima's question, we'll discuss this in chapters 17 and 18. We discuss many granular parts of the modes that affect us on a day-to-day basis, on our day-to-day activities. So everything should be in goodness, then you get the result of goodness. You cannot mix and match and expect the result of goodness. An example is, say, a teacher. Now, teaching is in the mode of goodness. But if a teacher is always trying to show that the students are stupid by always talking at a very high language and a very heavy topics without explaining in detail, and then he will say, you know, you all are stupid, you don't understand this. Well, he's putting these students down. Well, that activity is in the mode of ignorance. Although he is teaching, which is in the mode of goodness, but simultaneously is also doing activity of ignorance, well, he cannot get the result of goodness. So this chapter 14 chart that you have on the screen is the second of the 4 major charts. So in this chapter 14 will be high level philosophical points, and the chart number 3 and 4 will get populated in chapter 17 and 18 at the granular level for the various activities that we do. And we'll discuss at that point, I briefly answered that all points should be in goodness so that we get the result of goodness. So Sumnima's point that I am in passion, well, can I get the result of goodness? So we'll very soon discuss at our next class that goodness also has activity. Passion also has activity. The difference is in passion, the person is acting without thinking, just as in the fire example I gave, that the person is just running without thinking and creating a stampede, versus the other person in goodness is also acting, but he's first thinking, looking around and seeing what is the appropriate approach, find a fire extinguisher and call the fire department. So action is there. The how you do action is different in the mode of goodness versus in the mode of passion. Subnima, does that help you for the time being?
Yes, Prabhuji, a little bit.
Good. So these 4 charts, the 4 major charts, there's a few other smaller charts also. These 4 major charts of yoga ladder, the chapter 14 chart that we have on screen, then chapter 17 and chapter 18 charts, which are extensions of this chapter 14 modes chart. These 4 charts will show you where you are, where you want to go, and how to get to where you want to go. Somebody else besides Sumnima had also raised, I don't remember who raised the hand on the Zoom call. Somebody had raised the hand?
Prabhuji, sorry, it was me. I had a question on changing the mode that I think Abhishek Prabhu asked.
Yeah, so there's a detailed discussion coming up about changing the modes. First, understand the raw philosophy. Changing the modes is coming up discussion also.
Thank you.
So Abhishek Prabhu has a question in the chat saying, let me read. When we say modes execute means our state is in the mode of passion and the actions we do will be more influenced by acting without thinking, even though specific actions may be different. So you are correct that the primary characteristic of passion is to act without thinking and a lot of greed and just run. Abhishek Prabhu?
Thank you.
All right. We are just about at 10:30 p.m. Toronto time. I won't cover anything more. Our subsequent class is very heavy and very practical on the modes. We'll populate the chart at our subsequent class. So if you don't have, please get the chart for sure. And standard homework or standard spiritual endeavor after every class is to read all the purports up to the verse that we have covered. And also listen to Srila Prabhupada lecture that I will post in the WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.